Welcome aboard, passengers. This is Flight Captain Lesley Crook speaking. I want to welcome you aboard another month of Copilot session, and we are currently cruising into AI, infinity, and beyond. Cabin crew prepare for takeoff to discover how metaphors can simplify complexity with Copilots. So you can find me here on Copilot. So if you just put in who is Lesley Crook, MVP, you'll find information about what I've been up to over the last 8 years or so. And also I encourage you to try this yourself. You'll be surprised at what you might find, hopefully pleasantly surprised at what you might find. So the flight plan is, I'm going to give you a quick grammar lesson real quick. Have a look at popular technology metaphors from 2016 to 2022. Microsoft Copilot and Microsoft Designer metaphor prompts, and that's why you're all here. Have a look at how Viva Amplify comes into this, and a question that I heard on the radio last week, and I thought it was really interesting, and have a think about it yourself. What are you doing now that would surprise your younger self? And some breaking news. So the grammar lesson. So this is real quick. So metaphors, because I've had to look this up on Copilot to get the actual real definition of what I'm talking about. So metaphors are shortcuts for our minds and helping us understand intricate concepts. Whether visual like a picture or linguistic expressed in words, they shed light on complex ideas, making them more understandable and relatable to a broader audience. So as an example is from Copilot, time as a thief implies that time steals moments from just as a thief would steal possessions. So this is where I've got confused between when is it a metaphor and when is it an analogy. So an analogy is an extended comparison of a metaphor that explains a concept by showing how it is similar to something else more familiar. So just as a sword is a warrior's weapon, a pen is the weapon of a writer. So it probably still makes not much sense, but anyway, be clearer as I hopefully be clearer as I go on. So perfect example here, this lovely slide background of a plane with someone looking wearing a hat like this. So as we know, a co-pilot from flying a plane point of view needs the authority to proceed from the flight captain, also known as a pilot. Their role is essential for maintaining safety and operational efficiency during flights. They work closely together to ensure a smooth journey for passengers and crew. So the metaphor here is Microsoft Copilot needs our authorization to proceed safely with our work. We request it generate a response from a well constructed human prompt to help us become more productive, inquisitive, and imaginative. And my goal in this session is to share how to create stunning imagery for multifaceted communications in a way that is accessible to all. So just going on these kind of business metaphors that I've been aware of since I've working as a consultant. So this is actually mine, and I drew this up after the work that I did at GSK, where I worked there for 23 years, man and boy, and I helped to launch Yammer. So I worked in the corporate digital team out on the communication side, and I worked very closely with the guys that ran the Yammer network in the States and in Europe. And slowly but surely, we got Yammer past tipping point in the company, where it got to a point where the whole of the company, and that was, I think, about 90,000 people at that point, ended up using Yammer, and it was a huge success. And this is the framework that I drew up. It took me quite a while, and I ran it past a lot of people at the time, and I worked out loud, which is sharing your work with a view. Others might find it helpful, and others might help you improve your work. And eventually I draw up this hashtag model. So that's the metaphor I'm using here, because you need, at the time I was saying that you need hashtags on Yammer. They're really useful, just like at the time Twitter had become huge by then. So I was pointing out here with that turquoise text various hashtags with this model. So So I'm not going to go into this any deeper because I could lose half an hour just talking about this, but there is a blog that I found on Medium that I wrote in 2016 about the importance of hashtags. And being a visionary, didn't realize that's what I was at the time. It ended up that this kind of idea of this ended up as what we now know as Viva Topics, which unfortunately is not going to go any further. But I suppose that's because Copilot can help you find whatever you need really, really fast. But it was this idea of using hashtags and topics that I was thinking about, kind of like trying to think about 8 years ago. So moving on, when I was looking for the work that I'd published back then, I came across this blog from this company called Clear Company, and it referenced my framework, and I would never have known it was there if not for Copilot. I was really stunned, and it's got on here, working out loud in a network, which is what I called the framework. Hashtag Wolan, which is my Twitter handle, Wolan, is a framework created by me, focuses on changing workplace behaviours with more open and digital employee communications via enterprise social networks like Yammer, and there's ones called Jive. Obviously, there was Facebook Workplace, which is now being, as I understand it, decommissioned. The result is reduced email traffic, but increased understanding and better connections between employees and leadership on all levels. So I was stunned that that was there. I never knew it was there. I only found that last week. Going forward again, you go to 2018, and there is this model. Again, it's a metaphor, and I'll explain why. But it's basically taking as what I was trying to explain in my hashtag model. It's pretty much the same layout, but it's kind of like been simplified. This model has become to be was to be known as the inner and outer loops, and you can see kind of like you've got the inner loop, which is SharePoint, and the outer loops, which is how Teams and Yammer and Outlook work better together. And this was such a necessary and welcome model for the Yammer community champions on the Yammer customer network that felt very unloved because it felt like Teams was now coming in and Yammer was being pushed down. So we were right. Yammer is an excellent platform. It's now Viva Engage, and it's at the heart of the Viva suite. It's also a great platform for adoption and change management for everything in a company, but specifically at this time for Copilot. So yeah, really look back. If you've got a Yammer network, you've not used it before, now think about how you can use Viva Engage for your change management inside your organization. So the next metaphor that some of you in the technical sector will probably really recognize this, and it's been so loved. Again, this is the periodic table by Matt Wade. So he's taken that kind of like chemical entity table and he's turned it into this amazing kind of like product matrix framework, which he's updated, I think probably for about since 2017 when it was he first created it. And I've got a link to Matt's blog where you can download that table, and you can actually personalize it and take some of the tiles off, and you can make it up so that it's kind of like just a framework which you can use inside your company. You can just show the products that are available to the employees. So it's an excellent framework still. Then we've also got Kirsty McGrath in Australia and her M365 suite wheel. Absolutely brilliant. She's recently updated that, and it's got Copilot all over it. And there's a link to Kirsty's LinkedIn blog that she's put out a couple of months ago on where you can find how to download that. So really that's a sensory wheel, and I'll go back to that shortly because I've recently learned a lot about sensory wheels because I've become a honey taster and I've had to dive into a honey tasting sensory wheel. But there's also beer, there's cheese, there's olive oil, there's chocolate, there's wine. That's a really popular one, but that's where this idea has come from. So it's known as a sensory wheel. But also I think sometimes it's called the Pi, as the M365 Pi. I think it's been called that as well. So then we move on to another one of mine that came to me when I was just about leaving GSK, and I've been working heavily as a community manager. I didn't know it was called that then, on the Yammer network at GSK, and I felt like I was pivoting across these different roles at any one time. I had my job, but now and then I was kind of like had this astronaut, connecting, sharing, solving, helping people to innovate, introducing people to each other in the network. I was a detective capturing the voice of employees, with private groups because we didn't have teams then. I was a reporter. I worked in comms, looking for stories that were coming up from the Yammer network, from the factories. Oh, sorry, there's a fly there. Another one. And then you could be a surveyor asking questions and running polls. Heads of state. We're all heads of state with the likes. We've now got the emojis, and I'd like to think we've got the baseball cap of having fun with a purpose and publicising any charity endeavours that you do, and often the company matches those. So the blog that I wrote about that in 2017 is in that link, and it's called was called Six Yammer Hats. And then so that the idea of that came from Edward de Bono's Six Thinking Hats. And I'm not going to start describing this because I could lose another 10 minutes, but that framework is there. And that was came out, I think, in 1981 by the consultant Edward de Bono. And he's got some very interesting other frameworks and books. So I put the link there to de Bono books. And then we move on to 2018, where I went to work for a Microsoft partner, and they really liked my framework for helping to build up champion networks and giving them kind of like an understanding of what their varied kind of personas are within a champion community. And we had a great graphic designer there, that was drawing up persona profiles and modern work storyboards, and he helped me draw this up. The thing was, I was told to change the name of my framework because they were worried that Edward de Bono's people would sue me because the name was very similar. I didn't think it was very similar, and the framework's not really very similar, other than it's about six hats, but mine are completely different hats, and his was all the same hat, but they were different coloured. So we called it the Many Hats of Change Champions, and the blog still works the same. I could redo this now, add a pilot's hat, might do that as a blog for Trustmark where I work now, so I'll add that to my list, I think. So I think it's time to update this. It only needs to be updated a little because it's still got a long shelf life, what I was explaining there. Another kind of metaphor that I drew up when I did some work with the NHS. This is The Anatomy of a Modern Workplace by Adam Ribb, and this was showing how different parts of the body relate to different Microsoft products. So this was all about Microsoft 365 and Teams coming in as well, and there is a YouTube video there where I'm actually explaining that, so I'm not going to go any further on that one. And I actually presented this at Microsoft Ignite, if I remember rightly, in 2019. Who probably people thought I was nuts. And then we move, because that was enough about me, because there's some amazing other ones I've got to share with you that you might remember. So it's 2020, and this is Joel Olison, an MVP and RD in the US, and this was his framework for helping to shift us from Skype to Teams. So above the waterline, you've got the tip of the iceberg, and with Skype and Zoom and WebEx, they're all brilliant. They're all great if you just want to call, chat, and have meetings. But the main thing about using Teams is what's below the surface of that water. It's the integrations across Microsoft 365 tools, the applications, the bots, Power Platform, Azure. It's all in there. And we've also now got Viva, and we've got Copilot kind of all over this. So I thought I really love the this iceberg, but I've also seen it called the iceberg of knowledge as well, where they're talking about tacit knowledge over fixed knowledge. I think I've got that term wrong, but I think the tacit knowledge is definitely in there. So the tacit knowledge is below the waterline, and the fixed knowledge is in your documents and policies on that you can, that is being documented in a company. But what you're trying to get to is the tacit knowledge inside people's heads and conversational knowledge, and that's where likes of Viva Engage is really good. So there's a link to that particular framework there. at the bottom of the page. And then we move on to 2021 and the Viva Explorers. So Viva was launched around this time. It was completely overwhelming, the amount of products and services in there. So within here we have the Viva Explorers. This is the first Viva Explorers MVPs. We've got Kevin McDonald there on the right as a transformer. We've got Zoe as the Viva Dreamer with her lovely cloud jumper on. So there are the backbone of the this month of Copilot. So I need to thank them for all the work that they do, and our other friends on there as well. But each of us has employee experience superpowers, and we're superheroes, and we've all got our own special gadget as well. So I'm there with my my binoculars looking into the future. Little did I know that Copilot was coming along, and I'd be making a presentation like this nearly 2 years later. So that's kind of like the metaphor there of we're superheroes, but we all need to work together because we've only got kind of like a bit specialist in our MVP product areas. But what I've learned over the last 2 years is that you can't be that way anymore. You need to be a generalist, and you need to kind of have your specialist area, but also be prepared to, skill up on other areas that are coming up around you, because everything seems to be connecting and interconnecting, and especially with the likes of SharePoint and Viva and Copilot, everything is kind of blending together. So we are a very close group. We present together, we share our knowledge, because no one can be an expert on everything that's going on in Microsoft. It's impossible. So another one that was introduced to me by my MVP buddy, Moretta SharePoint Stava, and she explains SharePoint to me as solid, liquid, and gas. So solid represents defined components such as lists, libraries, and web parts. They remain stable and don't easily change. And then we've got liquid represents a site during collaboration, so users can add, edit, and delete content. The site is dynamic, adapting to user needs and changes. And then you've got gas representing scalability and flexibility. So imagine a SharePoint solution expands across multiple sites, adapts to various businesses, processes, and integrates with other systems. So I got that text from, I asked Copilot basically what would be SharePoint as solid, liquid, and gas, and it kind of gave me this. I edited it down to make it more succinct, but that's such a nice way to kind of explain this to a customer on the different kind of like entities or what you can actually do with SharePoint. As our SharePoint experts know, it is a vast area of how to run a community inside an organization with a really great structure. And 2022, again with Viva, it keeps on shape shifting. So this is the latest version of how it looks. I think this is the latest version. But at the time I created this Viva origami, it did have 4 themes to it. So this again is a kind of like a metaphor that I was using to simplify a very complex framework. So if you haven't seen this before, I basically took everything that was on this Microsoft's left image, and then I turned it into origami, and got a surprising lot of love for this. I think it's a bit like how we say in the UK, you either like Marmite, you either love it or hate it. I've written it up in a blog here. I think there's a video out there as well of me. I think it's on the blog of how this works, and it was. Microsoft asked if they could give it to their customer success managers. I think it got translated into French. Someone actually said to me, "Oh, I think we might use that for the Power Platform," but I never saw that version. So it's got great legs, and it's become the Viva origami. So again, a metaphor that I've actually given out many times for the audience to make up whilst I'm presenting, and they can then take it home with them. So it's a little bit kind of unusual that it's actually a piece of paper and people really like it. And then I've had many messages that people have given it to their kids and they go, oh, we love these. So it's kind of really simplifying the way to get across the value of what's in Viva, really break it down in a simple way to how you'd explain it to a 10-year-old. And then another metaphor from our MVP friends. So this is from Joy Apple and Jay Leask in the US. So they're going to be sharing their Viva Underground map, which is an outcome-based route to success with Microsoft Viva. So they've got a session on August the 6th at Tech Mentor. So that's another metaphor there. And then we've got coming up to September 2023. Right, we're moving into now Copilot. So I've talked 15 minutes about some really well-known or established metaphors that actually took it's taken graphic designers to really get to grips with what they were trying to explain. But now going forward, this is going to be much easier. It's getting much easier for me to create imagery around what I'm trying to describe and think about what's going on in my head around what's going on in the technology sector. So I think this is just such a creative and productive time to be going into. So October 2023, Microsoft Designer popped up. It was all over LinkedIn. There was about 2-3 months where every time I looked at LinkedIn, there were reams and reams of MVPs and Microsoft staff making up beautiful imagery of themselves and testing out how to prompt. And I was out of work by now, and I was like, oh, I can't keep up. I can't keep up. I can't do AI. It's not for me. I don't know what they're talking about with the prompting. And but then I thought, and then I got kind of like more of an understanding. So I thought, I went onto Copilot and I thought prompts are how you ask Microsoft 365 Copilot to do something for you, like creating, summarizing, editing, or transforming. And think about prompting like having a conversation using plain but clear language and providing context like you would with an assistant. So kind of like once I got that into my head, I thought, you can do this. You can do this. So I had a play with this over Christmas and eventually got this image. I'd learned that it doesn't work well if you're trying to use distinct words. You want it to kind of read out something on the side of a wall or as I was trying to do here on a hoodie, and it just about worked that I got a thriving employee experience and I got the word Viva. It was really obstinate. It kept giving me earrings, and I tried to make it look older because I don't we all know I don't look like that. So but that's what I ended up with, and I just went with it in the end. So the prompt was a happy cartoon woman, long brown curly tousled hair, dark blue almond shaped eyes, cat eye shaped glasses, standing up. Her right hand holds up a light bulb, which is my metaphor on my LinkedIn and my Twitter handle. Her left hand holds up origami. She's wearing a hoodie engraved in multicolored slogan for a thriving employee experience, Copilot in Viva, and the background happy audience people. So I was like, that's it, I'm in, I'm back in the room. So I made that my LinkedIn profile header for a couple of months, and there is a LinkedIn blog, a post that I put up when I put this up to show what I was that I'd done this and I could do it, and it was absolutely fine. And then February 2024, so I was working away in my own right as an MVP for a session that I had at ESPC with Moretta Stava, and it was something that turned into Viva Wayfinder, a new hire solution. And again, this is probably an hour-long conversation, and I'm still sharing this as a presentation. I'm actually at Commsverse in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm speaking on this particular product solution, which ended up as a product solution because it ended up being published by Microsoft on Marketplace on AppSource, which still stuns me now because I'm not a solutions architect. I'm an adoption and change manager, but I know Viva backwards and forwards. All the way around like a wayfinder, and I've used all 9 products and Loop and Planner. So if you want to know more about what I did there, there is the link to my blog. But I needed a image, a nice sharp image for the SharePoint site that I created on Simon Doy's an MVP in the UK. He let me loose on his CDX tenant. He said, Lesley, can't break it. Lesley, you can't break it. So I mapped out the how I was connecting up all of those products together. So the prompt I put in was generate a 5-point star, blue background surrounded by the sun, moon, stars, sea and plants with a human center, and I wanted it for SharePoint, and I was really pleased. After probably, I don't know, 10 attempts, I ended up with that. And then in March 2024, I'm now working at Trustmark, adoption and change lead. And one of my first engagements was to help to revitalize the champion program. And introducing kind of digital literacy upskilling. So this was my first attempt for real customer work, and they were based in Pennine. And then because I had it ringing in my head about Wayfinder, I came up with Pennine Way wayfinders. So I think if you're in the UK, you know what the Pennine Way is, and you can see that in the background of the left and right images. It's a very famous area in Yorkshire, and so it kind of worked quite well for a champions program, I think, because it's wayfinding is how people and animals orient themselves in a physical space and navigate from place to place, and that place to place. And that's kind of like what champions are helping you to do. So the kindness, fairness, ingenuity and determination, I got that from the core values on their website. And then the prompt I put into Microsoft Designer was generate a 4-star image with pink kindness, green fairness, purple ingenuity and blue determination. I mean, this was going to be used on Teams, Viva Engage and for SharePoint, and the customer really liked what I magicked up for them, but equally showed them how to do it, and they could carry on and create their own as well. And then I got into going to April this year, and I was asked to create a user campaign for sensitivity label adoption. I was like, oh, what am I going to do with that? So I went on to Copilot and I said, create a metaphor for data loss prevention. And within probably 3 seconds, it gave me imagine data as a river. Sensitivity labels act as a dam, controlling the data flow. It identifies potential leaks, secures access points, and prevents unauthorized data movement. I'm not going to read the whole load out. Imagine data as a river. So then I put that into a summarized version of that, which Copilot did for me, and I put that into Microsoft Designer, and I got these beautiful images. And then I double checked back to who the customer was, what they actually, why they exist. They are an infrastructure company, and part of that company is managing water utilities. My head was blown because it's just a pure coincidence. I didn't say for a water company. It's just a coincidence that I got this back. I did that from my phone with the Copilot app. Unfortunately, I did this at 10:30 at night. This is why you shouldn't use your phone at night. And I got into bed and I was like, I can't sleep now because this is so amazing. Yeah, I thought it was amazing. And anyway, the imagery I went on to test out in Viva Amplify to see what it would look like. So with Viva Amplify, you can manage your channels and you can target audiences. So here it's taken the email text that I wrote, suggested text for launching for announcing sensitivity labels are coming in the company by a senior stakeholder. This is how it dynamically formats for SharePoint. And then this is how it looks on Outlook. So it's slightly, just go back. It won't let me go back. on this Cameo, but that's how it looks on Outlook. It just looks slightly different format, but you can definitely see that it's a an Outlook email. And then this was what it looks like on Teams, and I chose target audiences inside um, Trustmark to test this out with my Viva Amplify license, and it worked beautifully and instantly all at the same time. So I didn't have to select all those channels. I could have just sent it out to maybe Teams and SharePoint. As we understand it, it's coming into Viva Engage as well. It may even be an option that you could, as a communicator, go out onto LinkedIn, but time will tell whether that will actually be the case or not. So you can send out, mass communications in one simple hit. You can also monitor the communications over time with message with the click rate that have gone through. And I think if you can respond, people can be responding to this, so they kind of like sentiment that's coming back about how this has landed. So you can, if you need to send it out again with a an update, like something's coming with a date, then you can create that as these brilliant campaigns. So an example of the Copilot return on investment here. So the process effort that I collectively, probably if I bunched all of my effort time together, I reckon that took me 90 minutes of collective focus time, and that includes writing the email, summarizing it, getting the image creation, and then sending it on Amplify. And the effort without Copilot and Viva Amplify could have been weeks, plus a graphic designer's expense. Yeah, that's the reality of that exercise. So May 2024, I was preparing for a Women in Tech presentation that I'm going to do in the finance sector. So I wanted the slides I've got there. I needed to have a nice image for the first slide. I wanted a nice image for the first slide, didn't have to have it. So I put generate an image of women in tech in the finance sector in a hybrid workplace, and I want it for PowerPoint. So you can see here, it's a global company. We've got women working at home and in the office, and there's also some data graphical graphs on there to show kind of like finance. And then this lovely one, I wanted to generate an image of serendipity when life surprises us with unexpected discoveries or fortunate encounters at work. And you can see there we've got the globe and we've got people chatting away. There's kind of like light bulbs going off. And again, I wanted this for PowerPoint. So fantastic imagery, again, around this idea of metaphors. I asked Copilot as well. I asked Copilot, what is working out loud with serendipity? So I've written this blog for internally at Trustmark, which I'm also going to publish shortly on my own blog. But I wrote this great long blog about my experience about the theme of working out loud. And then I thought, what could Copilot make of this? And it came back with this. It's mostly focused on the idea of serendipity at work, but there's some really nice things in there as well. And I asked it to give me an image, so generate an image of sharing your work with a view that others might find it helpful and others might help you improve it for SharePoint. And it gave me this kind of view of being in an art gallery, and it's sharing ideas for mutual growth, which I really liked. And then May 2024, we were doing Trustmark with Microsoft. We were hosting a Copilot promptathon at the in Wales, and we're doing a campaign on social media. So I thought, okay, let's create another, see what I can get. So generate an image at the Principality Stadium, Wales, for a Microsoft event with a happy audience, turquoise and teal colours, which is the Trustmark brand, for LinkedIn. So I got back the image on the right, and then I felt like I needed to personalise it a bit more. So I took it into PowerPoint and I overlaid it with those three images. There is in Microsoft Designer Edit, but I haven't quite got to grips with it yet. I'm sure I will, but I was quite happy with that. It took me probably 5 minutes, and then that's the post that I put out on LinkedIn with it, and it went down. It got it got the eyes on it, and I got some. It did what it needed to do, which was to get attention about the event. So, what are you doing now that would surprise yourself, Copilot, Lesley? So, personally, a passion project, which is honeybees are crucial in fertilizing flowers, are vital in producing fruits, vegetables and seeds. They support biodiversity and they help maintain healthy ecosystem. And if honeybees continue to decline due to pollution, pesticides, deforestation and climate change, our ecosystems and human nutrition will be disrupted. So protecting bees is not just an environmental issue, it's a matter of securing our natural food chain and our collective well-being. So I mentioned at the beginning about the honey. So I'm now a qualified honey taster, and I run honey food pairing workshops in my spare time. And I couldn't get that deeply involved in training around honey tasting without actually taking appreciation of the little workers that make that happen, and that's bees. So I wanted a image for some opportunities that I ended up getting involved in, and I asked Copilot for a honeycomb-shaped earth with individuals collaborate inside each comb as an intelligent community with tiny houses and buildings made of honey. And after a few tweaks with that prompt, I ended up with this, and I just think I just couldn't believe my eyes. I thought it's absolutely wonderful. So, what were we doing before we could do stuff like this? Well, we could use memes. I never liked them. I think they're crude and childish. And yeah, you can still use them if you like. That's what they look like. But the breaking news that I've spotted on LinkedIn last week is Microsoft Designer is coming to Teams. So this was announced by Derek Johnson. There's a link to the post there. So we can all make these creative images. And where are you today? Managing resistance to change. So this is the idea of this came from Matt Partovi, who was a customer success manager at Yammer when I was at GSK, and he found this I think this is more of an analogy, and that post I found it through Copilot. It's written about 8 years ago, where Matt talks about this particular little framework, and he admits again, like I do, it's not my framework, but I love it, so I'm going to work out loud and share how good it is. So there's more about it there, but in essence it's green dot person is motivated to change and energize. Yellow dot person is not quite ready but open-minded, and a red dot person is not ready to change. So that was the prompt I put in Microsoft Designer, and I got these three people with the little dots on their face, and I took the image into PowerPoint and I added the arrows above to kind of like make it more explicit what I was trying to say. So it's the red dots are not ready, the yellow dots are kind of like they're on the fence, but the green dots are kind of like, yeah, we're really there now. So I was definitely a red dot 6 months ago, and then having a play around with creating my own image at Christmas, I became like a yellow dot, and then now my role at Trustmark and been to three customer promptathons. I'm now very much a green dot, so that's happened in just 6 months. And then I ran my presentation through the Copilot summary in PowerPoint, and I got this summary. I'm not going to read it out, but I only had to edit it in those three places because there was slight spelling errors or something like that. But other than that, my Copilot flight logbook is, it's written up for me, and I'm ready to leave the plane. So I just want to say thank you for listening, and just to round up, when you're faced with a frustration or challenge that you need to explain to others, try the magic of generating metaphors with Copilot. Then copy the response into Microsoft Designer, where you can edit or use PowerPoint or even Photoshop. Depending on the complexity, you might not always get the image you want, but I still might need to use Graphic Designer, but it's a good place to start, and it helps you make communication presentations more engaging, more memorable, allowing you to stop procrastinating about and putting something off, and be more productive, confident, creative, and happy. We've all become reporters with brilliant camera phones. That was something, quite new 10 years ago, but now we can't be without them. But now we can all be creatives, empowered to achieve more. So as I said, thank you for joining my session, and I hope you enjoy the rest of June in the month of Copilots, or into infinity and beyond, because they're there on YouTube. Thank you.